Someone who had spent years being trained to notice things other people missed. He had been a Navy SEAL. He had served overseas. He had seen men die. He had carried wounded soldiers through darkness. And after leaving the military, he had become a single father to his 6-year-old son Noah. But none of that was written on his face. To strangers, Jack looked like a tired construction worker in an old black jacket. His boots were muddy. His jeans were faded. His left hand carried a small scar across the knuckles. He had come to the Bennett Foundation to repair a damaged storage room door as part of a maintenance contract. The box contained tools. The little boy walking behind him carried a red backpack and looked deeply offended by the rain. "Dad," Noah complained, "you said there would be a vending machine." "There is. You said it would have chocolate." "It probably does." "Probably isn't chocolate." Jack smiled. "That's true." Noah noticed Lily. He stopped. Jack stopped too. For a moment, the two children looked at each other. Then Noah walked over. Lily watched him suspiciously. He pointed at her wheelchair. "Does that thing go fast?" Lily blinked. "What?" "The chair." She looked down at it. "No." "Why not?" "Because it's a wheelchair." Noah shrugged. "My bike has wheels." Lily frowned. So wheels are supposed to go fast." She almost smiled. Almost. Jack watched the exchange without interrupting. Then Noah leaned closer. "Do you have a race mode?" Lily's mouth twitched. "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." "That's a bad design." This time Lily laughed. It was a tiny laugh, barely more than a breath. But Jack heard it, and something inside him shifted. Because he hadn't heard a child laugh like that in a long time. Not since his own daughter, Emma, had died. Noah looked at his father. "Dad, she needs a better chair." Jack nodded. "Maybe." Lily looked at Jack. "You think so?" "I think everyone deserves equipment that helps them do what they want to do." She looked at him carefully. "What if I don't know what I want to do?" Jack set the box down. "Then you start by figuring that out." Lily looked back toward the rain. "I used to want to dance." Jack was silent for a moment. "That's a good thing to want." "I can't dance." "Who told you?" "The doctors." Jack crouched down so he was at eye level with her. "Doctors know a lot." Lily nodded. "But they don't always know everything." She stared at him. For the first time in months, someone had spoken to her without saying the word limitations. That moment should have been small. It wasn't. Because across the street, inside a parked black sedan, a woman lowered her sunglasses. Lily Bennett watched the man crouched beside her daughter. Her hands were trembling. She had been watching Lily from a distance for 6 weeks. And she had been watching Jack Carter for 3. She knew his name. She knew he was a former Navy SEAL. She knew he had a son. She knew he was struggling financially. She knew he had lost someone. But she didn't know why a man who had survived war seemed to understand her daughter better than the people who had spent millions trying to help her. And Elena had one more reason for watching. She had not told Daniel Bennett that she was alive. Not yet. 3 years earlier, Elena had been presumed dead. Her disappearance had become one of the most whispered about tragedies in Boston society. The wife of billionaire technology investor Daniel Bennett had vanished after a private plane crash in the North Atlantic. There had been debris. There had been no body. Daniel had mourned her publicly. He had built a memorial wing at the hospital in her name. And Lily had spent years believing her mother was gone. But Elena was alive. And she had stayed away for a reason. A reason that would eventually force her to choose between protecting her daughter from the truth and finally giving Lily the one thing money could never buy. A mother. But that morning Elena only watched. Jack stood up. Noah tugged his sleeve. "Dad, vending machine." "Right." He turned to Lily. "See you around." Lily nodded. "Maybe." Jack smiled. "Maybe." Then he picked up his box and walked away. Lily watched him go. Something about him felt different. She couldn't explain it. He hadn't told her she was brave. He hadn't told her everything would be okay. He hadn't told her she was special. He had simply treated her like a person. That was the beginning. Not the dramatic beginning. Not the kind that makes headlines. Just the quiet beginning that happens when one hurting person recognizes another. The next day, Jack returned. Lily was there. The day after that, he returned again. Soon Noah started asking about her. Is Lily coming? Maybe. Can she play? Probably. Can I show her my Lego ship? Probably. Noah didn't understand why his father kept using the word probably. Jack didn't understand it either. He was trying not to become attached. That was something he had promised himself. He had already lost too many people. He didn't want another child to become important to him. But Lily had a way of getting under his defenses. She was stubborn, sarcastic, brilliant, and angry. Very angry. One afternoon, Jack found her in the therapy room staring at a set of parallel bars. Her therapist had stepped away. Lily was alone. Jack leaned against the doorway. You planning an escape? No. Looks serious. I hate these. The bars. Everything. Jack walked closer. That's honest. She looked at him. Everyone tells me I need to be positive. Sounds exhausting. It is. Jack nodded. Then don't be positive. She stared at him. What? Be angry. She looked confused. Angry? If you're angry, be angry. But that's bad. No. Hurting people because you're angry is bad. Feeling angry isn't. Lily looked down. I'm angry at my legs. Jack didn't answer immediately. Then he said quietly, I understand. You don't. No. He swallowed. I don't. Lily looked up. My daughter died. The room became silent. Jack hadn't planned to tell her. He almost wished he hadn't. But Lily didn't look away. What happened? Car accident. How old? 7. Lily's expression changed. Almost my age. Yeah. Did you save her? Jack looked at the floor. I tried. Lily waited. I wasn't fast enough. The words came out like they had been buried inside him for years. Lily whispered. Did you blame yourself? Every day. Do you still? Some days. She thought about that. Then she said, So you're angry too? Jack nodded. Yes. That was the first time Lily understood that adults didn't always have answers. Sometimes they just carried their questions. That afternoon, Lily asked Jack to help her stand. He didn't celebrate. He didn't clap. He didn't call the nurse. He simply stood beside her and said, Tell me when you're ready. She gripped the bars. Her arms trembled. Her legs shook. I can't. You don't have to. I want to. Then try. He pushed. Her knees barely moved. Pain shot through her body. He cried out. Jack didn't tell her it was easy. He said, Breathe. He tried again. Her legs moved. Only an inch. But they moved. Lily looked down. I did it. Jack nodded. You did. She smiled. For the first time since the accident, Lily felt something other than loss when she looked at her legs. She felt possibility. Outside the building, Elena watched through the window of her car. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She had seen Lily try to stand hundreds of times. She had watched doctors. She had watched therapists. She had watched Daniel hire specialists from 3 countries. But she had never seen her daughter smile afterward. Elena covered her mouth. Who are you? She whispered. She already knew. But she needed to understand. Over the following weeks, Jack became a quiet part of Lily's world. Not her therapist. Not her employee. Not her father's friend. Jack. He taught her how to fix small things. She taught Noah how to play chess. Noah taught her how to build Lego spaceships. They became an unlikely little family. And Daniel Bennett noticed. Daniel was a billionaire, but wealth had not made him confident around his daughter. If anything, it had made him terrified. He could purchase medical equipment. He could fly Lily anywhere. He could hire the best specialists. But he couldn't make her believe she had a future. So when his assistant told him that Lily had been spending time with a maintenance worker named Jack Carter, Daniel wasn't pleased. Who is he? Former Navy SEAL. Why is he around my daughter? He works here. That's not what I asked. The assistant hesitated. Sir, Lily seems to like him. Daniel looked through the glass wall of his office. Across the rehabilitation center. He saw Lily laughing with Noah. He hadn't heard her laugh like that in months. Maybe longer. Find out everything, Daniel said. Within 24 hours he had a file. Jack Carter. Former Navy SEAL. Honorably discharged. Multiple commendations. No criminal history. Widower. Single father. One deceased daughter. Financial difficulties. Small rented house. Part-time maintenance work. No suspicious connections. No history of exploiting wealthy clients. Daniel read the file twice. Then he looked at a photograph of Lily. Why him? He didn't know. But Elena did. Because Elena had been watching. And she had begun investigating Jack herself. She discovered something Daniel didn't. Jack had once saved the life of a young Afghan boy during a military operation. The boy had been trapped under a collapsed building. Jack had gone back for him after being ordered to withdraw. He had been injured. He had carried the child out. When asked why he had disobeyed orders, Jack had simply said, "He was still alive." That sentence stayed with Elena. Because that was exactly what Lily needed. Someone who didn't look at her as broken. Someone who saw that she was still alive. One Friday evening, Daniel confronted Jack. The maintenance room was nearly empty. Jack was packing his tools. "You've been spending time with my daughter." Jack looked up. "Yes. Why?" "She asks me questions. She's 8. She has good questions." Daniel stared at him. "You understand who I am?" "Yes." "Do you understand that my daughter's situation is extremely sensitive?" "Yes." "Then you understand why I don't want strangers becoming emotionally involved with her." Jack closed the toolbox. "Your daughter isn't a business asset." Daniel stiffened. "Excuse me. She's a child. I know exactly what she is." "Then act like it." The silence between them was sharp. Daniel stepped closer. "You have no idea what I've done for her." "No. You have no idea how much I've spent." "No. You have no idea what I've sacrificed." Jack looked directly at him. "Maybe." Then he added quietly, "But I know what she's missing." Daniel's jaw tightened. "What?" "Hope." Daniel looked away. For a moment, the billionaire had nothing to say. Jack walked past him. At the door, Daniel said, "Stay away from my daughter." Jack stopped. He didn't turn around. "Okay." Then he walked out. The next morning, Lily waited for him. Jack didn't come. She waited again the following day. He didn't come. By Tuesday she was angry. "Where's Jack?" Daniel said nothing. "Where is he?" "He won't be coming back." "Why?" "Because I asked him not to." Lily stared at her father. "You did what?" "I was protecting you." "You don't protect me." "Lily, you lock me in this building and call it protection. That's enough." "No." Her voice cracked. "You don't know me." Daniel froze. "I know exactly what you're going through." "No, you don't." She pushed herself backward. "You know what doctors say. You know what lawyers say. You know what the newspapers say. But you don't know what I want." "What do you want?" "I want Jack." Daniel's face fell. Lily began crying. "I want someone who doesn't look at me like I'm going to break." Daniel sat down. He had spent billions solving problems. This one couldn't be solved with money. That night he went to Jack's house. It was a small 2-story home with peeling paint and a porch light that flickered. Jack opened the door. Daniel stood there in an expensive coat. For a moment neither spoke. Then Daniel said, "She misses you." Jack looked down. I miss her too. Then come back. Jack shook his head. You told me to stay away. I'm changing my mind. Why? Daniel's eyes filled with something that looked dangerously close to shame. Because my daughter smiled for the first time in months. Jack said nothing. Daniel continued. I thought protecting her meant controlling everything around her. And now I'm starting to think maybe I've been protecting myself. Jack looked at him. From what? Losing her too. The words broke something open. Jack understood. Because grief had taught him the same lesson. They both wanted to protect the people they loved. And both had confused protection with distance. Jack returned the next day. Lily was waiting. When she saw him, she tried to roll toward him too quickly and nearly tipped her chair. Jack caught the handles. Easy. She looked at him through tears. You came back. I did. Why? Your father asked. She frowned. That's not a good reason. Jack laughed. Okay. He crouched beside her. I came back because I wanted to. Lily smiled. Then she hugged him. Jack froze. For a second he couldn't breathe. Because the last child who had hugged him had been Emma. He closed his eyes. Then he hugged Lily back. Across the room, Daniel watched. And for the first time he didn't feel threatened. He felt grateful. But there was still a secret. A secret Elena couldn't hide forever. One afternoon, Lily was practicing with a physical therapist when she suddenly asked Jack a question. Do you think my mom would be proud of me? Jack's heart tightened. Yes. How do you know? Because you're fighting. I don't feel like I'm fighting. Fighting doesn't always feel strong. Lily looked at him. Do you think she watches me? Jack paused. I think people who love us never really stop. That night, Elena sat alone in her hotel room. She stared at an old photograph. Lily was 4. Elena was holding her. Daniel stood behind them. They looked happy. They had been happy. Before everything broke. Elena had disappeared after discovering that someone close to Daniel's business empire had been using company resources for illegal operations. She had tried to expose it. Then she received a threat. The plane crash happened shortly afterward. She survived. But she was badly injured. She spent months recovering under another name. When she finally returned to Boston, she learned that Lily had been told she was dead. Daniel had believed it. The world had believed it. Elena could have revealed herself. But the people who had threatened her were still searching. So she stayed hidden. She watched. She waited. And now she had realized something terrible. Lily was growing up without her. No amount of protection could give her those lost years back. Elena decided it was time. But before she could reveal herself, disaster struck. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Lily was participating in a rehabilitation exercise when the building's fire alarm sounded. The staff immediately began evacuating. But Lily's wheelchair malfunctioned. The electrical system failed. One wheel locked. The chair wouldn't move. Smoke began filling the corridor. People shouted. Children cried. Jack had been outside repairing a generator when he heard the alarm. He ran inside. Where's Lily? Second floor. He didn't wait. He ran. The building filled with smoke. Jack found Lily near the therapy room. She was terrified. Jack! I'm here. My chair won't move. I know. He disconnected the power. Then he lifted her. She wrapped her arms around his neck. Don't drop me. I won't. Promise. Promise. Jack carried her down the stairs. Halfway down, smoke became thick. He couldn't see. He covered Lily's face with his jacket. Keep breathing. I can't. Yes, you can. I'm scared. So am I. She looked at him. You are. Absolutely. But you're not acting scared. Jack smiled. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. He continued down. Outside, firefighters rushed toward them. Jack emerged carrying Lily. She was coughing but conscious. Daniel ran toward them. He took Lily into his arms. She's okay, Jack said. Daniel looked at him. Thank you. Jack nodded. But Elena was watching. This time she wasn't in a car. She stood across the street. She had seen everything. She couldn't hide anymore. She walked toward them. Lily looked up and froze. There was something about the woman's face. Something familiar. Something buried in memory. Elena stopped several feet away. She couldn't speak. Lily stared. Do I know you? Elena's lips trembled. Daniel turned. He saw her. His entire world stopped. Elena! The crowd seemed to disappear. Daniel took one step forward. Then another. You died. Elena shook her head. I survived. Lily looked between them. Her eyes widened. Mom! The word was barely audible. Elena broke. She fell to her knees. Lily began crying. Mom! Yes. Elena crawled toward her daughter. I'm here. Lily reached out. Elena took her hand. For 3 years she had imagined this moment. But imagination hadn't prepared her for the weight of Lily's fingers in hers. You came back. I did. Why did you leave? Elena closed her eyes. Because I was afraid. Of what? That loving you would put you in danger. Lily cried harder. You should have stayed. I know. I waited. I know. Every birthday. I know. Lily's face crumpled. I thought you didn't love me. Elena pulled her close. I loved you every single day. Daniel stood nearby, tears streaming down his face. Jack stepped away. This wasn't his moment. But as he turned, Daniel called his name. Jack. Jack looked back. Daniel walked toward him. You changed everything. Jack shook his head. No. Daniel glanced at Lily and Elena. Yes. Jack looked down. I just listened. Daniel smiled sadly. Maybe that's what we all needed. The reunion changed everything. But healing wasn't immediate. Lily was angry. She had every right to be. She loved her mother, but she also felt abandoned. Elena understood. She didn't ask Lily to forgive her quickly. She simply stayed. She attended therapy. She listened. She answered difficult questions. Some days Lily yelled. Some days she refused to speak. Elena remained. Because this time she wasn't going anywhere. Daniel changed too. He stopped trying to solve every problem with money. He began spending afternoons with Lily without his phone. He learned the names of her therapists. He learned how to operate her wheelchair. He learned that sometimes she didn't need encouragement. She needed someone to sit beside her. Jack continued helping Lily. But his relationship with Daniel became complicated. They were very different men. One had billions. The other had a modest home. One wore tailored suits. The other wore old boots. But they shared something neither had expected. They were both fathers who had been broken by loss. Daniel eventually asked Jack to help establish a new program at the Bennett Foundation, a rehabilitation and mentorship center for children with disabilities. Jack refused the first offer. Daniel asked why. Because I don't want to become another executive. Daniel laughed. What do you want? Jack thought about it. I want to work with kids. Then build the program. Jack looked at him. You'd let me. Daniel smiled. I'd be an idiot not to. The program became known as the Carter Initiative. But Jack insisted the name wasn't important. He wanted children to have access to adaptive sports, outdoor experiences, engineering workshops, and mentorship. He wanted them to learn something Lily had taught him. A disability could change the way you moved through the world. It did not have to decide where you were going. Months passed. Lily improved. Not magically. Not overnight. She still used a wheelchair. She still had painful days. She still struggled. But she stopped saying, I can't. Instead she started asking, how can I? That one question changed her life. She wanted to dance again. So the rehabilitation team adapted the choreography. She wanted to swim. They found a program. She wanted to race Noah. They found adaptive racing equipment. And on the day of her first race, Hundreds of people gathered. Daniel stood beside Elena. Jack stood beside Noah. Lily rolled to the starting line. She looked nervous. Jack approached. "Ready?" "No." He smiled. "Good." She laughed. "Why is that good?" "Because ready is overrated." She looked toward the finish line. "What if I lose?" Jack shrugged. "Then you lose. You're supposed to say I'll win." "No." "Why?" "Because winning isn't the point." She looked at him. "Then what is?" Jack pointed toward the crowd. "Look." Lily turned. Her father was cheering. Her mother was crying. Noah was holding a homemade sign that said "Go Lily Go." The therapists were smiling. Children from the center were shouting her name. Jack said, "You spent years thinking the finish line was the important part." Lily looked at him. "It isn't." "No." "What is?" "The fact that you decided to start." The signal sounded. Lily pushed. Her wheels moved. Slowly at first. Then faster. She passed the first marker. Then the second. She wasn't the fastest. She wasn't even close. But she kept going. Halfway down the track, her arms began to ache. She wanted to stop. She heard someone shout, "Lily!" It was Elena. Her mother. Lily looked up. Elena was crying and laughing at the same time. "Keep going." Lily pushed harder. At the finish line she crossed alone. She didn't win the race. But everyone stood. The applause was deafening. Lily cried. Not because she had lost. Because she had finally understood. Her life wasn't over. It had simply become different. After the race, Elena approached Jack. For a moment they stood silently. Then Elena said, "Thank you." Jack shook his head. "Don't thank me. I need to." "Why?" "Because before you came into her life, she thought her future had already ended." Jack looked toward Lily. "She changed herself." Elena smiled. "You gave her permission to try." Jack looked away. He wasn't comfortable with praise. Elena noticed. "Your daughter would have been proud of you." Jack froze. He hadn't told Elena much about Emma. "How do you know?" "I know what it means to lose a child." Jack's eyes filled with tears. Elena reached out. "You don't have to carry her alone." Jack looked at her. For years, he had believed remembering Emma meant staying trapped in the worst day of his life. But maybe remembering her could also mean carrying forward the best parts of her. Her laugh, her curiosity, her stubbornness, her kindness. That night, Jack went home and opened an old box. Inside was Emma's favorite drawing. A crooked picture of a family standing beneath a yellow sun. At the bottom, in childish handwriting, were the words, "Dad, don't be sad." Jack smiled through tears. "I tried," he whispered. Then he added, "But I'm getting better." Years later, Lily would become a powerful advocate for children with disabilities. She would speak at universities. She would help design adaptive technology. She would become an accomplished artist. She would still use a wheelchair. And she would never hide it. When reporters asked about the person who inspired her, she rarely mentioned her father's money. She never mentioned the specialists. She always mentioned Jack. One interviewer once asked her, "What did he do that changed your life?" Lily smiled. "He didn't save me." The interviewer looked surprised. "He didn't." "No." Lily looked toward the audience. "He taught me I didn't need saving." Those words became famous. But there was one more thing Lily said. "My mother watched him before I knew who he was." The interviewer asked why. Lily laughed. "Because my mother was scared." "Scared of him?" "No." She looked down at her hands. Scared that she had missed too much. Then Lily told the story of the woman in the black car. The woman who watched from across the street. The woman who cried when Lily stood for the first time. The woman who finally stepped out of the shadows. Her mother. Years later, Elena confessed something to Lily. "I didn't know if I was brave enough to come home." Lily asked, "What changed your mind?" Elena smiled. "You did." "No. You did." "What did I do?" You kept hoping. Lily thought about that. Then she said, Jack taught me. Elena nodded. And who taught Jack? Lily smiled. I think Emma did. And that was the truth. Sometimes hope travels through people. A little girl loses the ability to walk. A grieving father loses his daughter. A mother loses years with her child. A billionaire loses himself inside the belief that money can protect everyone he loves. And somehow, through all of it, they find one another. Not because anyone is perfect, but because broken people can still help each other heal. Jack never became a billionaire. He never wanted to. He continued living in the same modest neighborhood. He continued driving an old truck. He continued making breakfast for Noah on Sunday mornings. And he continued visiting the rehabilitation center. Because every once in a while, a frightened child would look at him and say, I can't. And Jack would smile. Not because he had a magical answer. Not because he could promise everything would work out. But because he understood what it meant to stand at the edge of a life you never expected to have. He would crouch beside them and say the same words he had once said to Lily. You don't have to know how yet. Then he would point toward the road ahead. You just have to decide whether you're willing to take the next step. And sometimes the next step was physical. Sometimes it was emotional. Sometimes it was simply getting out of bed. Sometimes it was forgiving someone. Sometimes it was asking for help. Sometimes it was admitting that you were afraid. But it was still a step. Lily eventually created a scholarship in Emma Carter's name. The scholarship helped children with disabilities attend adaptive sports camps and rehabilitation programs. At the opening ceremony, Jack stood quietly in the back. He didn't want attention. Lily found him anyway. You came. Of course. She handed him a small envelope. What's this? Open it. Inside was a photograph. It showed Jack and Lily on the day they first met. He was crouched beside her wheelchair. Noah stood behind them holding his red backpack. Rain streaked the glass doors behind them. Jack stared at the photograph. I don't remember anyone taking this. Mom did. He looked at Elena. She was standing nearby. I told you she was watching. Jack smiled. Lily pointed to the back of the photograph. Read it. Jack turned it over. There was a handwritten message. To the man who reminded my daughter that hope is not a promise that everything will be easy. Hope is the courage to keep going. Jack wiped his eyes. That's beautiful. Lily smiled. You deserve it. He looked at her. No. She shook her head. We both do. The crowd applauded. But Jack barely heard them. He was thinking about a 7-year-old girl he had lost. He was thinking about a little boy named Noah who had grown into a confident young man. He was thinking about Lily, who had once believed her life was finished. He was thinking about Elena, who had spent years watching from the shadows. And he finally understood something he had spent years avoiding. He couldn't change what happened to Emma. He couldn't undo Lily's accident. He couldn't give Elena back the years she had lost. He couldn't erase the pain. But he could choose what happened next. And sometimes that was enough. Years earlier, Jack had believed courage meant running toward danger. His military training had taught him that. But life had taught him something else. Courage could also mean staying. Staying when grief told you to disappear. Staying when someone was angry with you. Staying when forgiveness took time. Staying when the future looked nothing like the life you had planned. And perhaps the greatest courage of all was allowing yourself to hope again after hope had once broken your heart. That evening, Jack stood outside the center. The sun was setting. Lily rolled up beside him. Beautiful, isn't it? Jack nodded. Yeah. She looked toward the horizon. Do you think life gets easier? Jack thought about it. No. Lily laughed. That's not very inspirational. He smiled. I think you get stronger. She looked at him. What's the difference? Easy means nothing hurts. And stronger. Stronger means you learn that pain doesn't get the final word. Lily was silent. Then she smiled. You should write that down. Maybe I will. They sat together watching the sunset. No dramatic music. No cameras. No reporters. No billionaire speeches. Just two people who had once been broken in different ways, sitting beneath the same sky. And somewhere inside that quiet moment was the real ending to their story. Not that Lily walked. He didn't. Not that Jack forgot his daughter. He never did. Not that Elena got those lost years back. He couldn't. The miracle was something simpler. They learned to live forward. They learned that a family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes family is the person who shows up. The person who listens. The person who doesn't stare at what you've lost. The person who looks at you and sees what is still possible. And perhaps that is why the story of a single father, a former Navy SEAL, and a billionaire's disabled daughter touched so many lives. Because beneath the wealth, the tragedy, the wheelchair, the military medals, and the secrets, they were all asking the same question. Can life still be beautiful after it breaks you? The answer isn't always yes. Not immediately. Sometimes the answer takes years. Sometimes it comes through another person. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as a stranger crouching beside a wheelchair on a rainy morning. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person you think is saving you is actually reminding you that you were never as powerless as you believed. Lily once thought her wheelchair represented everything she had lost. Years later, she called it something else. Her wheels. Her freedom. Her way forward. And when someone asked her why she never wished to become the person she had been before the accident, she smiled. I don't want my old life back. Why not? Because I wouldn't have met the people who taught me how strong I could be. Then she looked at Jack. And Jack looked at her. Neither needed to say anything. They already knew. Hope had not arrived in their lives like a miracle. It had arrived as a choice. One small choice after another. To show up. Try again. To forgive. To love. And finally, to believe that even after everything is taken from you, there may still be something waiting on the other side of the pain. Something you cannot see yet. Something you cannot buy. Something you cannot force. Something called tomorrow. So if you're watching this story and you're carrying something heavy, remember Lily. Remember Jack. Remember Elena. You don't have to solve your entire life tonight. You don't have to know how everything will end. You don't have to be fearless. You only have to take the next step. Because sometimes the next step is where hope begins. And if this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Like this video so more people can find a little hope in it. And subscribe to the channel for more stories about courage, family, resilience, and second chances. Because somewhere out there, someone is sitting in the rain, looking at a life they never expected. And maybe all they need is to hear one simple truth. Their story isn't over yet.